Hello and welcome. It's Francis here. Thank you for coming back to my channel. If this is your first time here, I bid thee welcome. There is a subscribe button below if you would like to help support this channel by subscribing, and also a bell to be notified as to when I upload more content. I'm coming to you from Ghana country, and as such, I acknowledge the Ghana people of the Adelaide Plains as being the traditional custodians of this land. So in this video, I'm going to be focusing on the full moon that we have coming up on Sunday, the 21st of July. It'll be full at 7:47 p.m. That's Australian Central Standard Time. It'll be in the astrological sign of Capricorn, and this time it'll be at 28 degrees, so 29 degrees, 8 minutes, right at the end, the last degree of the sign. So this point is actually known as the critical or the analytic degree point. It can sort of emphasize or bring about a sense of urgency or crisis point. And it's the second time that we've had a full moon in Capricorn. We had one last month, or at the beginning of this month, actually. So it is unusual to have two full moons in a row in the same sign. And as such, no, it was last month, it was in June, but it was 1 degree of Capricorn was right at the beginning, and this time we're right at the end. So this means that this is effectively a blue moon. Now, some astrologers, and I'm not an astrologer, I link the astrologers that I refer to below. Some astrologers have indicated that this full moon in particular is part of an energetic reset. And what we are resetting is what we did at the Capricorn new moon. So we had a Capricorn new moon back in January on the 11th. If you're into new moon manifestation, this is a good time to sort of see what has actually come into reality from January for you, and what hasn't, and it's the time to let what hasn't go. Also, at the beginning of the month, we had a new moon in Cancer at 14 degrees, and now the sun is in Cancer. So it means that the energetics for this full moon, extending back from that new moon, is at its peak in the whole lunar cycle. And this axis of Cancer and Capricorn is quite an interesting one. It relates to family, privacy, our emotional inner world, because this is where the sun is. It's sort of connecting with our heart chakra, our heart center, making us feel sort of vulnerable. However, the sun is also at the end of its, it's directly opposite the moon. So there's also a sense of ownership, of owning these emotions, of owning these feelings. And as Marty McCord puts it, trusting your truth. What is real for you? And also taking responsibility for it, because it's no one else's responsibility for your truth but your own. Then on the other side of the axis, we have the moon and Capricorn. And this is the world at large. This is where we are showing up in the world, where we are taking responsibility for the things that we need to handle. And also how we are being perceived by other people. So there is a connection too about family lineage, because Cancer is also about family in the home, and taking it through down the line, down the axis to Capricorn, how we are perceived in the world, as to also where we are coming from to where we are going. So think about that just for a moment. Our lineage, family line, how this is being perceived in the world, where we've come from, and how we are being presented, or where we want to head out from this point onwards. So this means that this particular Capricorn new moon could also be putting us in alignment with what we have considered or identified with as being important. the goals that we need to sort of accomplish by the end of this calendar year in particular, but also realizing what is not working out for us, because at the energetic point, it's all about the needing to surrender, to let go, to release. And this could be holding us back. So again, definitely something to start thinking at. As always, when there's a full moon, the sun and moon are directly opposite each other. The sun also being, as I said, 29 degrees, 8 minutes in Cancer, highlighting something that we may not be aware of, bringing it into our consciousness. So look to see where 29 degrees, 8 minutes of Capricorn is in your birth or natal chart. This is where the moon is. See if there's any planets or points around that could be activated at this time, and see what house Capricorn is in, because these can all highlight what is rising up for your attention. Now, Capricorn is the sea goat. It's connected with the government. It's connected with big corporations, with institutions, big banking, etc. It's connected with where we see inequality, elitism, where there is, according to some astrologers, this power over this dominating space, this control or wanting to control. And it's quite interesting because in the last couple of weeks, months, here in Australia, we are seeing an increasing attempt to crack down on demonstrations in particular, the right that we as the people have a voice, or have the opportunity to voice our opposition. It could be that it's something to do with what people are voicing their opposition to that is being clamped down on, and what it is, and this is how I'm seeing things, what they're voicing their opposition to is control over, or the attempt of control over one group of people over another group of people, with the latter group of people almost being pushed to annihilation, shall we say. I don't say too much about it. But again, there's a very emotive energies in it. But there's this big power struggle. And this intensity is also being enforced by Pluto. Pluto is conjunct with the moon at 0 degrees, 54 minutes of Aquarius. It's retrograde at the moment. It's opposing the sun. And so it's connecting, what's adding to this intensity. It's also connected with, because an Aquarius is about the people, it's about the future. But it's almost like there is a deadline looming, making us feel uncomfortable. And this could be due to past emotions. Sun is in Cancer. And our connection to the past that's holding us back. And this is something that we are beginning to realize that we can no longer ignore, that we actually need to process through in order to move forward. And again, I don't want to sort of hint to or name conflicts or whatever, but when you sort of step back and look at what's happening, maybe from this angle of unprocessed trauma that's connected with the past, think about this axis of where we've come from, our family line, where we're heading into, and how things have been ignored and now things coming to a head, so to speak. Quite interesting, shall we say. So taking it from the sort of global stage, the world stage, back to our own sort of lives, what's happening in our own sphere, this will be a moon to start looking at something dead in the eye. This is sort of like the end point, I said, the crisis point, to release or end something once and for all in order to move forward. And it's not going to be comfortable. It could be something that we've been really struggling with. As I said, Cancer, where the sun is, our emotions, we don't like it. But there appears to be more and more unprocessed emotions, emotional attachments, etc., coming to the forefront that we simply need to deal with, to let go, and to move forward. This is the only way now. So yes, it's bringing up power struggles. It's bringing up power struggles internally, and it will be bringing our power struggles externally as well. And this is also because Capricorn is about our own individual mastery. It's about our own personal discipline. When we are being called up to take control of our own lives, our own power, our own sovereignty, we're having to be responsible for our own stuff, our own place and part that we've played. Then we add Pluto to the mix, not forgetting that Pluto has been dancing across this degree point a number of times now since March 2023, where it's being sort of doing this dance between Capricorn and Aquarius, activating, reactivating, deepening, really placing the emphasis on, can we say, the end of the old way, or the old way of doing things, the old world, however this resonates with you. However, what is being played out externally around us, the macrocosm, is also a reflection of our inner world, our microcosm. As above, so below, as within, so without. And this comes back to responsibility again, our own energetics. What exactly is the energetics, or the blueprint, or the connecting force of these energetics that each and every one of us are putting out into the collective? Now, I recently posted a quote, an alleged quote from American Buddhist teacher Prama Chudran on my Instagram feed that tends to reflect this. And the quote comes from her book, When Things Fall Apart. And it's this: every day we could think of the aggression in the world. In New York, Los Angeles, Halifax, Taiwan, Beirut, Kuwait, Somalia, Iraq, Gaza, Ukraine, Kenya, Saudi Arabia, this is in Paris, everywhere, all over the world. Everybody always strikes out at the enemy. And this, and the pain that escalates forever. Every day we could reflect on this and ask ourselves, am I going to add to the aggression in the world? Every day, at the moment when things get edgy, we could just ask ourselves, am I going to practice peace, or am I going to war? So we have a choice when we're at this sort of anoretic, this crisis point, as to where our energetics are going to land. Are we going to add to the aggression, add to the pain, add to the confusion? Or are we going to come from a place of peace? Not judgment, but just peace. Again, that's something to think about. So we've got Pluto in Aquarius, and it's going to be staying here until about the second half of September, before retrograding or moving back into Capricorn. And then it's going to finally move into Aquarius in November, where it's going to remain for the next 20 odd years until 2044. And one of the astrologers up below, Pam Gregory, points out that when a planet continuously crosses a degree point, which we're seeing with Pluto, that point becomes very activated. It's a very hot issue. Therefore, it is important to prepare ourselves as this old world, or the old way of doing things, is crumbling away. And it's actually been doing this for a while now. Like, I would even say a number of years, since the big Jupiter-Saturn conjunction way back in 2022 or 2021 or 2020, who knows. But we've been on this sort of trajectory of change. And now we're at this point where It's not a dream, it's happening all around us. And it's important to continue to prepare ourselves as the old is crumbling away. Because there are going to be really big shifts happening that will be shaking us out of our comfort zone and our conformity. So we need to really step up and look at how we are going to sort of move through these changes. We need to consider where we are standing and what direction we are facing. Are we still facing backwards towards the old familiar patterns of doing things? Or are we facing the unknown, the new? And there could be also an amount of fear and panic, especially when we start losing the familiar. But this fear and panic is actually a waste of personal energy. We need to sort of really start facing the future, because Aquarius is the sign of the people. It's about humanitarianism. It is linked to civil rights. It is linked to human rights. And there is this big push to really shake ourselves free of the old, outdated ways in the world in order to embrace the new. And again, astrologers like Pam Gregory have been talking about this for a long time now, and she tends to highlight that this marks a shift in power from the governmental control over to a more people-driven display of power. And how will this actually play out? How will each and every one of us going to approach these changes? These endings that are occurring, whether we like them or not. And what's quite interesting, again, on the world stage, is that we've seen the results of both the French and the British elections. In France, there's been this unusual partnership that needed to take place between two parties on the left and the central party to keep the right out, the far right. And in England or Britain, there was the landslide loss by the out-of-touch Tory party, which was really interesting. It wasn't sort of unexpected, really, but I think the degree of the swing was quite surprising. Again, this comes down to power of the people who voted, who took their right that they were allowed to do, their democratic right, and stood up and made the change. Also, there were a number of people, quite a few people, I think, who actually gave up. They didn't. I don't think in England it's compulsory voting like it is over here in Australia. Anyway, there is now the American election, and I might just leave it at that, because there's things about this election that I don't simply understand as to how things have been able to, or been allowed to get to where they are. But that's because I don't really understand American politics as much as maybe I should. I don't know, because we're living in a more global world. But sometimes we just need to hone in back to where we are. Okay, so I'm getting off track. So the moon rules Cancer, and this is where the sun is. And I've said this, I think, in the last video as well. The sun is about the south. So this is a shift in solar energy back to the south that may bring a focus around making something more sustainable for us. The lunar energy, again, as I said, is highlighting something that needs to come to an end, needs to be completed, something that probably no longer serves us, or is in alignment with us, or in alignment with the direction that we're wanting to head in. Now, there are also some, not only is Pluto in Aquarius, but there's some other interesting transits. The sun is trine Neptune at 29 degrees, 50 minutes of Pisces retrograde, right at the end of Pisces, meaning that this is a sextile with the moon. And again, this is an emphasis on our personal power, or the ability to create a new way of doing things, and a focus on the new, an opportunity to step up and take responsibility for our role. Neptune in Pisces also relates to our mental fatigue, confusion. There's an energetic tool of maybe not really knowing what to believe of all the chatter that we are hearing that's going around. So again, this is sort of emphasizing the need to surrender, this time our egocentric need of control, and trusting higher power to guide us. So help find our way through the fog, so to speak, and how we can get back in touch with this inner guidance, going within, getting out of our head into our heart, trusting ourselves, bringing our power back into us. Stop listening to the distracted babble that is taking up all our external communication channels, and breathe. And because there is a breakthrough happening, and that is demonstrated by Uranus, which is 26 degrees 31 minutes of Taurus, which is trining the moon as well. So there is a sense of awakening into the answers that we need to go forward. However, we still need to keep in mind that the outcome that we are desiring may not actually be the one that's going to be revealed to us. And this is highlighted with Uranus squaring Mercury, which is 26 degrees, 3 minutes of Leo, which is readying itself for its next retrograde in early August. I love it when Mercury goes retrograde. Mercury is our planet ruling communication and travel and sort of contracts and a lot of communication, not just spoken communication, but digital communication as well. And when Mercury goes retrograde, what it'll be actually doing is squaring Uranus 3 times. First time will be at this new moon, or sorry, full moon. So it will be almost like a bit of a shock value, something unexpected, some unexplained challenges could emerge. Then Mercury will go into retrograde, hitting that point again in early August, and then when it writes its way again, it'll come out and hit that point for the 3rd time. So what this means is that things could or are going to get a little bit messy. However, as I said, things do not happen without a reason, whether it's not always the whim of the gods, so to speak. There are big changes about. Again, we have been, well, astrologers and metaphysicians have been talking about this for years. There is this need to take responsibility to ensure that outdated energetics are surrendered, are left behind in order for the new to emerge. And we're at this point now where the new is emerging, whether we like it or not, whether we want it or not, whether we are ready for it or not. We have been procrastinating and dragging our feet. I'm trying to distract ourselves by looking back. And this change has been happening regardless of what direction we're heading into. We've been warned about it, it's been talked about. So we're at this sort of analytic crisis point, degree point, this action point, where we need to surrender, where we need to let go, where we need to face our shadow wounds, all those skeletons that are rattling in our closets once and for all, and also find out for ourselves what is the best way each and every one of us can sort of put in place, our coping mechanisms to carry us through these changes. Ask yourself, how do you cope with change? How are you preparing yourself for this change that is about to occur? Don't worry about anybody else. We need to look at us, and then how we react. Do we come from, as Prima Charon said, do we come from a place of aggregation, a fear, refusal, denial, or are we coming from a place of peace? Because we are that pebble being thrown into the pond. What is the reaction of our own energetics? Again, this is something that we need to take responsibility of. We also have Neptune and Pisces. This is all about where we will be stepping into. It's about what trust means. It's encouraging us to make real and practical what we're bringing in, all these changes. It needs to be real, it needs to be practical, and there needs to also have the spiritual essence to it. And Molly McCord mentions something really interesting in her video, because she connects this Neptune and Pisces with our desire at the moment to sort of worship false prophets, so to speak, of buying into the glitter facade, into the veneer of those who aren't actually connected with a higher purpose. That's a bit judgmental. But this connection from source, which is also like face value. I was thinking like the influencers on Instagram is probably a good one. The so-called role models who do not actually come from a true knowledge base. It's almost like we're eating up their energetics. We have surrendered our power to them, and that there's no nourishment coming back. There's no spiritual nourishment coming back. And this new full moon is going to highlight the need to seek deeper truths, deeper soul-aligned truth. And it's going to be a lot of exposure. Again, coming back to taking personal responsibility, of owning up, showing up. Because Saturn is also in Pisces, and this turns the responsibility back on us. So we're going to have to stop palming it off to other people or anything else, or getting lost amongst all the sort of shifting and changing energies that are around at the moment. So there is a lot for this new moon. There's a lot that's been highlighting. It's almost like a cosmic cleanup. So it will be challenging. It will be uncomfortable, especially if we've been hanging on to things that really need to be closed out, released, changed, surrendered. But these changes are drastic, but also permanent. And therefore, it may also be hard for us to truly wrap our heads around the changes that are going to be coming to light, especially later in the year when Pluto moves completely into Aquarius from November onwards. So until that happens, now is the time to breathe. Now is the time to really be mindful of our energetics, our role, how we are showing up, each and every one of us. It's important to focus on being here and now, of coming back to the earth, of being grounded, of getting out of the confusing head stuff. And sometimes, because it's going to be challenging, just lean into the challenge. Almost sort of free fall. And that could be scary in itself. So that's all about this new full moon. I just want to make a quick mention that on Sunday, the 28th of July, at Carpe Diem with Remy down at Port Adelaide, I will be holding a workshop on the moon. It's called Once Upon a Witch's Moon. And that's the theme of the July Gather Around the Cauldron, which are monthly events that are held down at Carpe Diem. And this month we're going to be exploring gaining a deeper understanding of the moon, especially how it applies to us in magical spiritual workings. If you are interested, I'll put the link below. There are tickets can be available through Humanitex as well. And you'll need a copy of your natal or birth chart. There are links given where you can obtain that, or you can let me know, and I can even do a generic one for you. There will also be a full moon gathering on the Sunday of the full moon. So I normally have my gatherings just before, and as the full moon will be at 7:47, if we meet down at Lance Bay at 7 o'clock, we will be able to hit the full moon in its energetic just before it sort of peaks and then begins to descend. So again, I'll put the links below there. So there is a lot happening for this full moon, the second full moon in Capricorn. It is about surrender. It is about ownership, being responsible. It's also one that's reminding us of our interconnected role that we have in the wider community, not only just in our own life. So we are that pebble that gets thrown into the pond, and the waves that roll out from it, how are we going to shape those? Is it going to be agitation? Is it going to be fear? Is it going to be peace? Something to think about. So if you have any comments, please put them below. I do go back and read all the comments. If you haven't done so, please consider subscribing and supporting this channel. I don't ask people for money or anything about a Patreon or anything like that. It's the only way you support this channel is really by subscribing to it. Please check out the links to the astrologers, Pam Gregory and Molly McCord below, because they've got some really interesting and different angles how they look at the astrological point. And until next time, take care. Blessings.